Hey everybody, welcome to This Woman Can. I am your host, Janice Sutherland, career strategist for the woman of colour over 40. Now, my guest this week is a kindred spirit as we work in the same field, and looking at her bio, we've had very similar transitions out of corporate. Laurel Rutledge is founder and CEO of LKR Group LLC and laurelrutledge.com. She's a career and leadership transformation expert and HR strategist. During her extensive career, she has built global teams, developed and coached leaders, implemented large-scale projects, and effectively managed broad organizational change. Laurel has held several senior corporate roles, including VP and Global Head of HR Strategy and Analytics, plus senior roles in internal audit, consulting, and risk management. Her global experience has given her a perspective that enables her to effectively coach individuals from the plant to the boardroom. One of her guiding principles is people will listen to what you say, but they will believe what you do. In addition, this is why I say we're on similar paths. She's the host of the weekly radio show and podcast, both named the Rutledge Perspective, focused on small business human resources and career and leadership transformation topics. Whoa, Laurel, I love that bio. How are you? Welcome to This Woman Can.
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to have this conversation. I've just been waiting all week to have this conversation.
Fantastic. So we've just heard about your bio and your corporate, and now you're on entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. So tell the audience and listeners a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. And the big thing I like to tell people about my journey is use it as an example of just say yes sometimes, just say yes. So, my undergrad is in accounting. That's where I started out. And I did that because I really wanted to do psychology. And my dad was like, baby, I love you, but you got to get a job when you got to get out of college. And so I took an accounting class, right? Yeah. And I could do it and it was okay. And so I did accounting and got out and got into oil and gas, right? In Texas in the 90s, which was horrible, right? So they hired 5 of us new, and in 5 months they're like, we're so sorry, right? So that really started my journey into knowing that, yeah, accounting's okay, but I get bored doing that same thing every month. I can't do that. And that's when I got introduced to more the logistics and operations and supply chain, and started doing internal audit for the first time at my next role. And then I knew when I got out of undergrad, I knew I wanted to go to grad school. So I worked for about 3 years because that's what the schools I wanted to go to, the average was 3 years, right? Yeah. So did my research. So I went back to grad school and did operations and international business. And I knew I wanted to be functionally fluent in Spanish. And so I finished it at ESADE in Barcelona. Okay. And 3 of my 4 classes were in Spanish. And I started learning Spanish about a month before I got over to Barcelona. Wow. Now, I had learned French for years, right? I took years, but I'm a Texan. Yeah. We're not going to use it, right? So, but it helped me with my Spanish. And so, after that, I got into consulting and internal audit. And what I've realized from my journey is, even though every time I moved, I was like, I don't know. The only reason I moved is because I knew what I was doing then wasn't what I wanted to do. I was either bored or I was working with people that I just didn't want to work with anymore. There was something that was an impetus that said, it is time to go. And every single time something else showed up, and I just said yes. And so ultimately I ran into someone at a casket company, of all places. Right. Not many people work at casket companies in death care. I ran into someone who saw me in my initial role as the leader of risk management for this organization, saw me at an executive meeting because I worked with the board of directors and all of the executives at the subsidiaries, and came up to me and said, have you ever thought about being in HR? I was like, funny you should say that. I was actually thinking it's time for me to go because this is, they're paying me a lot of money to just do reports. This is ridiculous. Yeah. So I thought about HR, and then the rest is history. And he's still a mentor of mine, by the way. Wow. And so I found myself actually coming full circle, because if you think about human behavior, psychology, all of that kind of stuff, you need that in HR. And being non-traditional, having come from a business place, all of those moves and the consulting and the audit enabled me to speak the language of business, to be able to be very invested in how the business operates. And the way my mind works is you're a business person first and an HR person second, because if there's no business, there are no jobs, right? And so that really, all of those things along the way, when I look back, were the things that enabled me to be such a good HR person, and in particular, a global director or global VP of HR strategy and analytics, because I get the strategy and the data piece and how it ties to people. So, and then I just got tired of corporate, right? I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't do it anymore. It was just toxic, right? And so then I just decided to go and said, step out on faith. And I gave them plenty of notice, and I knew it was time, because when I made up my mind, I wasn't upset. I wasn't upset. I wasn't fearful. It was just time. And, you know, because of the way I did it, and I think because of divine intervention, God always has a plan. They actually panicked. And I was like, I'm leaving you. It's February. You've got till May. Right. I'm being nice. You've got until May. But they hadn't really been paying attention to me as an employee. And so it ended up that they asked me to stay longer. I stayed till the end of the year. And that actually ended up funding my start of my business, because I'm like, I'm not staying any longer than that. But here's what it'll take for me to stay past my date. And I was ready to walk away. I was ready to walk away. And that made a difference. Right. So long story short, it's been circuitous, but it all seems to have locked into where I am now.
And you know what? I listened to you and I'm thinking there's so much gold in what you've said. And then I saw another part where we again had our paths similarly crossed. First of all, your dad telling you to get a good job. Literally, you need to get a good job, the old adage. And how many women, mid-career women, find themselves in roles not of their choice, but because of family or influence and something like that. You know, what defines a good job? You know, it's not necessarily the field, the path. What defines a good job? And I often say that, but definitely for us Black women, and I find that whether we're Caribbean, whether we're American, it's sometimes we're making our parents look good. You know, so they can have bragging rights about, look, this is what my daughter does, and etc. And then what you did, you said, there's a few things, I'm trying to remember them now, having a senior moment. When you talked about the swervy career. That, you know, it's never linear. This thing where you're gonna start at the bottom and make your way to the top. That's not realism. That's not what we do. You don't stay in a job for life anymore. But the positive of that is that as you've demonstrated, the different experiences gave you transferable skills that you can use in other roles, which is still helping you now as an entrepreneur.
Absolutely.
And then last one I took out of that was having a plan, because I too gave notice. I gave 6 months notice. And whereas they didn't force me to stay, the restructure we're going through, they loved me so much and revered. That's what revered. Revered. I take the word revered. So they actually gave me a package. When I didn't ask for it, but like you, I'm done. I'm done. You know, this is the ice on the cake. Thank you very much. Of course I'll take it. No, I'm not going to say no. You know? Oh dear. So Laurel, in all of that change you've been through and the different swerves, the different types of the reinventions. What do you think has been your greatest reinvention, and why?
You know, that's a really good question, because I believe I've had several. And of course, the biggest one is the most recent, right? Leaving from corporate into entrepreneurship, because I was just having this conversation with a girlfriend yesterday, or this morning actually, is that there's something about the history, the ancestral experience, in particular of Black people in the US and anyone who was in that African diaspora that started with kind of the slave ships, right? And the colonialism and almost being indoctrinated, the right use of the word, not the way it's getting used in the US right now, but indoctrinated with this idea that you work for someone, you grow up to work for someone, right? You go to work and you make sure you go to work, you got to show up, and unless you're on your deathbed, you go to work, right? It's this idea of having to work for someone else. That's what you do. Right, wrong, or indifferent, right? It's just like we have trouble with manufacturing right now, because there was a generation of parents that said, I want my kids to do better. And better meant don't work on a factory floor, right? So those unintended consequences of what we want better for the next generation. And so the biggest transformation, I think, right now for me has been this move from relying on someone else to pay me, to reward me for the work that I do, versus No, let me take my gifts somewhere where I have more control over them. I get to set the value of my experience and expertise, not my personal value, because no one can pay you enough for your personal value, but for my expertise and my experience, I get to set that. I get to determine how I can show up and that I'm always aligned with my values, right? So this has probably been the biggest one for me in my entire career, is taking that big leap, right? And I think the other one was really moving out of that very consultancy, more business minded into HR.
Yeah.
That was a huge change, right?
Yeah. Fabulous. So like me, another similarity, we are women over 50.
Yes.
Yeah. So what would you say is unique about, and again, we've both changed roles over the years. So what do you think is unique about pivoting mid-career, midlife, the challenges, opportunities?
You know what? So people always said that something happens when you hit 50, when you're a woman, you hit 50. And at 50, I decided there is not much that I still care about related to somebody else's opinion of me. Very little. I mean, it was literally like a switch flipped.
Yeah.
And I thought, why am I entertaining all this drama? Right. So when you're beginning to make any kind of change, I think once you hit that 50, there's a whole different perspective on the importance of what you want and what you desire and what you know of you versus everybody else's opinion. Kind of to what you said earlier, it's one of the things I work with my clients on is as you're trying to decide what you want your career to be, even if this is early career, if this is high school and you're trying to work with your kids on what they want to be when they grow up, what do you want to do? Right? What do you want to do? Where are your gifts? What makes your soul sing? And how can you put that in perspective? Because we do a lot of stuff because we're supposed to, or somebody else says we're supposed to. Right. So once 50 hit, it's like, no. I'm not going to do that. Now, I'm not necessarily going to be ugly about it. And we're not going to have all big fights about it. But I am very particular now about what I let in my space. I'm very protective of that. And because this entrepreneur journey is not easy. And if you didn't kind of come up that way, there has been so much learning. So if there are women in your audience who are really thinking about taking that leap from corporate to entrepreneurship, be ready. Because all of that head trash through will show up the minute the only person you're relying on is you.
Absolutely.
It's going to show up. So be ready to do that work. Be ready to do that work on you. And so it's been the most difficult transition of my life, but it has also been the most rewarding because I'm willing to do that really deep work. And I have a great therapist. I'm very open about the fact that I'm in therapy and I love it. I love it. It is a way, it is self-care for me. Because corporate America is toxic. It can be highly toxic, especially for Black women. It can be toxic. And so there is trauma associated with that, and allowing yourself to, number one, feel, number two, recognize that you are not crazy. You're not crazy. And three, making a choice, because you always have a choice, and corporate will think you don't have one. They'll make you think you don't. You have a choice in how you show up, if you show up, whether you show up, and whether you want to continue to show up for them.
It's true. It's very, very true. I mean, I remember used to telling my younger counterparts when I was in corporate that I'm not on a career trajectory. I enjoy what I do. I have pride in what I do, so I always deliver well. But whether you promote me or not, it's not an issue for me. I already reached a level of success that I was incredibly happy with. And even when they offered me the CEO role the first time, I said no. A number of reasons, but I said no, and then I realized, well, why aren't you doing it? You're already doing the job in essence. You might as well get the title and the, and the money for it, because I knew my longer term plan, if I had this role, would play into what I had. So it's about having that plan. I can say I was the first of this. I was this. So it's worked for me. But the don't give a damn attitude. I'm with you on that. What can you say about me? I'm over 50. I've been successful. What you say, what you want in your career, what I want in my career, two different things.
Exactly.
That's down to you. My values in my 50s. sure as hell should not be the values I held in my 20s or 30s.
No,
You
they're
know?
very different.
Yeah.
They're very different. And my value of me is very different.
Yes.
My value of me is very different. I feel very differently about me. And that's not to say I'm perfect and I don't have my moments where I'm like, oh, really? Is that what we're doing today? Right? We all have those moments, but fundamentally, I am very clear on who I am. I'm very clear. I'm very clear on the things I do well. I'm very clear on the things that I don't, right? I don't have a poker face. I'm not getting one.
True.
I'm not working on it, right? It's not worth it to me. But because I am self-aware, I also know the impact that we have on other people. And so since I don't have a poker face, then I am very conscious of the words I say and the tone I use.
Yeah.
So my face may be saying, you've lost your mind, but my words will say, now help me understand, because maybe I missed something.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
Totally. I love that. Yeah. So Laurel, thinking back when you were doing this, or you're going to this last transition from corporate entrepreneurship, what regrets would you have had if you didn't go for it?
They would have been huge, because truly the transition for me was really non-negotiable. I mean, I was so exhausted. I didn't sleep on a Sunday for 5 years. 5 years. Wow. It was constant conflict, a complete disconnect of values. I am not conflict avoidant at all. Yeah. I don't run away from conflict, but to be in it constantly, I don't have that kind of energy. That introverted empath I am, right? It's just, it's too much. And so had I not done this, I am very, very clear that I probably would have, if I hadn't literally lost my mind, my health would have been in the toilet. I probably would have suffered a nervous breakdown. I have no doubt, no doubt in my mind. It was that bad. It was time. It was just time. And I encourage people to pause and really evaluate. Are you unhappy just because you're unhappy? Okay, then you can do something about that. But if it is truly like soul sucking, really evaluate. Is it me? And do I have some stuff I need to work on? Or is it just time to go, and be okay if it's just time to go?
Yeah, absolutely. And what I find is that your body has a way, whether you're resisting mentally, your body has a way of making sure. So look, if you are not going to stop, I'm going to stop you. Yes. And having experienced that, it's like, really, wow. Okay, I better listen. Right. You better listen, as you say, take stock and reflect and stuff. And no, it's not menopause. It's not always menopause. That's the first thing to say. It's not always menopause. Yeah, it really is time to make that change. It really is time to make that change. And that's why I love working with these women, because they're at with the women that are in mid-career transition, because they're at such a point in their life where they're probably reading all the signs incorrectly and not maybe owning up to what it actually is because of fear. Yes. In whatever format it takes, from financial, from the prestige of your title and stuff like that. They're just not listening. So
and fear and habit, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Our habit is, if it's not going well, okay, what could we do different? What did I not do? How did I not say that right? I used to always be, I had a priest years ago when I first moved to Cincinnati. I really thought I was losing my mind. I thought I was having a nervous breakdown. And I remember talking to this priest, going into pastoral care, and I'm like, I don't understand. And she said, Laurel, what we've realized is that midlife crisis, right, manifests differently in women. We're not buying cars and cutting our hair and all that. We're in that position where we're like, I think I've lost my mind. I used to be able to do 400 things at one time, and now I can only do 2. Or I'm tired all the time. It's like we lose some of our energy or our focus, or what we think we have. And it's really just, it is time to transition into something that is more reasonable. That's what that is, right? To get to who our true self is. It's not about no longer being capable or having lost your mind or any of that. There may be some of that, right? It's really about this habit of there must be something wrong with me. There must be something wrong with me, because I used to be able to handle this, and now I can't. So something's wrong. And I encourage you guys, when you first hear that, stop, short circuit it. Short circuit it. That is not necessarily true. Go back and see what's really going on, and then determine what the real situation is, because the stories we tell ourselves are not necessarily true. They're not necessarily true.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, I'm sitting here going through my mind, listening to you, and I keep seeing that it's my head nodding. And I feel like that the dogs on the dash,
Right.
the nodding head dog.
The
I'm like,
bobbleheads.
my goodness, will your head stop bobbing? You know,
Right?
but it's such great content. So listen to what she's saying, listen to what she's saying, ladies.
Yeah.
So you've been obviously, well, from what I can see, you've been successful throughout your career. But Laurel, how has failure made a positive difference in your life?
Wow. You know, I would say, and I've had many.
Mm.
And I don't think you can get to where you and I both got to without them.
Yeah, definitely.
And one of the things that was key for me, because when we grew up, our parents were like, even if you have nothing, if you have a good name, you have everything.
Mm.
And so because I am self-aware and because I own my own stuff.
Yeah.
I've always been a person that's like, oh, okay, I messed that up. I'll fix it. Right. Yeah. Or I don't know the answer to that, but I'll find it. And so one of the biggest failures that I had recently, we were implementing a huge new payroll system. And my vendor just laid down on me, completely laid down on me. Now, for context, we had spun off the entire organization. So not only did I have to build my team from just business partners to a full-blown HR department, but then I had to help all of the other organizations that were back office fix theirs and do it the right way, make sure the right, I mean, all of that kind of stuff, right? And getting people to do big projects who had never done big projects before, because I came out of consulting, right?
Yeah.
So we had this vendor, I was relying on some folks to do some things, and I I have to own the fact that I just wasn't as close to it as I should have been. I trusted, but my trust but verify piece was off. I wasn't doing nearly as much verification. And so, and I've worked with vendors before, and I've been a vendor. And there was something in my mind that said, this doesn't sound right. But I was so busy trying to manage all the balls that I thought, nope, my team has got it. They didn't. And not because of intellect, experience and exposure to big projects. Also, not everybody has the same willingness I have to just speak truth to power. You know, it wasn't acceptable. And so that was huge. I mean, we ended up having the whole team ended up staying that night, and I'm telling you what, that team made it happen. They stayed overnight. We hand wrote checks for folks. Well, you know, electronically. For people, not a single person missed a paycheck, not a single one. But it was all manual, right? And then we had to go back and deal with the vendor. But that was a big failure, because then I had to stand up in front of all of our people on a town hall and say, here's what happened. Here's how we're going to do it differently. And oh, by the way, we called in an auditor. I wanted to make sure not only did we get you paid, but that we didn't miss anything. So called it external, and whatever happens. At the comp committee, you know, E&Y came in. They're like, well, one, this is the most complicated payroll we have ever seen. I'm like, no, I know, we're trying to clean that up. Wage, and two, no, your payroll is absolutely accurate. So for me, the learning in that failure was, number one, don't forget to trust but verify. Trust but verify. No matter how busy you are, find time to trust but verify. Two, make sure your folks, when you know that they don't have the same ability or courage or desire to speak truth to power, that you make sure that the door is open so that you get early notification of a problem. And then three, never kowtow to a vendor, ever. You're paying, right? You're paying.
Exactly.
And then and be ready to own it. And so I stood up there with full confidence. I answered every question. I took everything, because I was the head of HR.
Right.
You know, and so while responsibility rolls downhill, right? My people were responsible for making stuff happen. I'm accountable. I'm accountable to the whole organization as a leader. And so that failure really brought all of that home again. It's like stuff you know, but until you experience, you don't have to live it. So those are kind of the three things that I would say. Just make sure you trust but verify. Make sure you create space for people to do it. Keep your vendor, hold them accountable, because we also found a lot of leakage because vendors weren't being held accountable. Make sure you're holding vendors accountable, and then be ready to step up. If you are grown enough to be in the role, then you are grown enough to be accountable for everything that happens. And that can be difficult, but a true leader and a servant leader takes the good and takes the lumps and just owns it.
And you mentioned there about speaking, being confident enough to speak truth to power. Is that something you've always had, or something that's evolved with maturity, do you think?
You know, I've had people ask me that before. They're like, why do you do that? How do you ask the questions you ask? One, I am naturally curious,
Yes.
which means I've always been very, very open. That's one of the reasons I call it the Rutledge Perspective. I believe you have to get a lot of information to develop your perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But the other piece of that is my parents really always held us accountable. And if we did something wrong, the first thing you did was have the conversation. I'm like, please just ground me or beat me or whatever, right? I don't want to talk about it. But they forced you to have a conversation about, well, why? And what was your part in this? And how did you? And so in that conversation, when I felt like, no, I was in the right here, the hardest people to speak up to can be your parents, especially if they're disappointed or they have an idea that something's wrong. So learning then to say, no, I did that to this person because they did this, and it just wasn't right. It was out of integrity. It wasn't right. And I felt like I had to say something. And so that ability in the very beginning to not necessarily justify actions, but to explain your perspective of why you did something, then gave me an opportunity to go into every situation and say, we're going to put it all out on the table. Good, bad, we're going to put it all out on the table, because no matter what decision we make, I'm going to walk out of here and we're all going to be on the same sheet of paper. I'm not the person you have to worry about going against the decision. You're not going to hear that from me. I'm also the person that's going to be very clear that we had that conversation. And when it goes wrong, I've already got a plan B because I knew better, but I never have to say, I told you so. Never. It's the conversation, right? So I speak truth to power very early and in a way that is collective, in a way that is respectful, and hopefully in a way that people can actually hear it. Because the other thing about speaking truth to power that I think people confuse is speaking truth to power is not about somebody's character. Speaking truth to power is about addressing a behavior that is leading to an outcome that is unacceptable. It is not a judgment on somebody's character at all. So those using that word "you" all the time, I try to avoid "you" when I'm having those conversations. You know, this is what happened. This was the outcome. That is not the outcome that was anticipated or desired. So there's something else that has to happen next time. And because I don't use that "you," it sounds less accusatory, and I can help focus it. And so if you're speaking truth to power, what is the issue? It's not them, although they may be a big piece of it. But to speak truth to power means you are addressing an issue. And so it was very early. It was formed very early on for me.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for that. So Laurel, if thinking back now, at whatever point, if you had to start over from scratch, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently?
I honestly, I don't think I'd do anything differently.
Okay, cool.
I really don't think I do anything differently. I mean, there are specific actions, you know, like decisions I may have made a little different, but I still would have taken the jobs that I took, right? I still would have gone to the places I went because all of those experiences have enabled me to do what I'm doing now. And so if I could tell anyone anything, is give yourself the opportunity to have the value that comes out of insight, right? From that postmortem, right? From looking backwards. You don't want to stay in the past, but the ability to look backwards and see how all the dots connect. If you look at it with an open mind and a spirit of, what did I learn? How did that build me? I can think of maybe individual actions. And I'm like, oh, maybe I should have said that different because I'm a type A, right? Oh, 3 years ago, I should have said, right? So there's that, but no big, I wish I'd done that different, because it enabled me to do what I'm doing now.
I always tell people that I don't want to live life with regrets. I don't want to woulda, shoulda, coulda. You know, I'm going to do it, and that's it. That was my choice. That's what I did. I'm not going to not do it if it's something I want to do, you know, and I live with the consequences. Good, bad, or indifferent.
Absolutely.
But I did it.
Yes, I agree.
So Laurel, I'd love you to finish this sentence for me. My best career advice for other women at midlife is?
My best career advice to women at midlife is be really confident in who you are. Because you get to make a choice about what's important for you. And if you stand in that power, no matter what that choice is, you are not only able to handle whatever consequences come from the choice, but you are able to stand in your power of where that choice gets you in the goal that you're ultimately trying to achieve. So the mantra is trust yourself in this moment. You are enough. In this moment, you have everything that you need.
Fantastic. That may be the title of this podcast. Fantastic, fantastic. So we're coming down to our last few questions, Laurel.
Yeah.
What are the three things that you've learned about yourself during your career?
So one of the things I learned about myself is I am very much, because I'm very aware, I have to be very careful when I'm a leader that my giving people space to learn and grow can often be seen as not being accessible. And just because I don't need a lot of hand-holding and time doesn't mean people who work for me don't.
Right.
So that was a big one. The second one is I have very little tolerance for lack of integrity, very little. And we're not going to lie, and we're not going to rewrite history. We're just not going to do that. Not on my watch. And because I am so adamant about that, it is very important for me to be able to be clear on expectations, but also be able to manage those engagements in a way that doesn't necessarily reflect how irritated and angry that I am.
Right, right.
And then the third thing that I've learned is I'm actually really good at what I do. I have a superpower of finding dots, seeing dots, connecting things that other people don't see, and being able to truly speak that truth to power in a way that can be heard, that is accessible, that's not accusatory, but that really does sit in that area of accountability. And it's taken me a long time to get to that place where I can say out loud, I'm good at what I do. I'm really good at what I do. And there are things I'm not good at, but what I do, I am really good at what I do. And I love helping other people do the same.
Excellent, excellent. I love that. I love that. So going to get you at the hot seat very soon. Penultimate question is, what does success, Laurel, feel like to you?
Success to me feels like freedom. It feels like freedom. And I know that sounds really cliche, but being able to spend time with friends and family in a way that I'm present. Being able to truly serve, to show up for people 100%. Being able to make an impact. It's that freedom of just being, showing up as me, flaws and all the time. It's all me, right? I'm not putting the mask on anymore. That's success for me. That's success. And don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about assimilation and appropriateness, right? There's such a thing as appropriateness, right? You really shouldn't be wearing overalls to the opera, right? There's appropriateness.
Oh, you shouldn't be wearing that because you're over a certain age.
That too. That too. But that ability to really be authentic and just be who I am, that's success to me. That freedom to just be, be.
Fabulous. You know what? I know what you said is about cliche, but I think, as you said, at a certain point, there's things that don't matter to us. And freedom was one of my drivers, that I can be in control of me and my direction, what I did, and have that time to do what I wanted to do and my terms. And so I totally, it's not cliched at all. And I totally get it. So Laurel, my last question now is, if people want to know more about what you do, get in contact with you, connect with you, how can they do that?
Thank you so much for asking that question. The easiest way, go to my website, laurelrutledge.com, and everything is on there. And then you can always email me, welcome@laurelrutledge.com. And I really pay attention to that email. And of course, the podcast, right? I'm the Rutledge Perspective everywhere. So the podcast is the Rutledge Perspective. The radio show is the Rutledge Perspective. My fireside show is the Rutledge Perspective. So you can find me on all of those platforms. But I'd love to hear from you. And if I can be of service, I love to be of service. And if I'm not your person, I have a great network. So I can probably connect you to somebody else, because it's not about me. It's about you. And so go to laurelrutledge.com and you can find me.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that, Laura. It was great having this conversation with you today.
I loved it. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.